Former Baltimore Police spokesman T.J. Smith. Baltimore businessman Ricky Vaughn. And the current mayor of Charm City, Bernard Jack Young.
Can we just give all of them a round of applause again, please? Thank you. Now, the rules for tonight's forum are simple. Number one, each candidate will have the opportunity to share a 60-second opening statement. Number two, that will be followed by a series of questions researched and created by CLEAR students. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer the questions. We will then take questions from members of the audience. Those questions will either be addressed to all the individuals on stage or to a specific candidate that you address them to. You will also have 60 seconds to answer those questions as well. We will conclude tonight's forum with closing statements at 1 minute and 30 seconds apiece. We will have a timekeeper here who will make sure that no one is going over their time. Will our timekeeper please stand to be recognized by candidates? Thank you.
As Amaya just mentioned, we will take a few questions from you, the members of the audience. Joining us tonight to help us out with that are members of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. They're in the house to help you with all of your hospitality needs. Can you raise your hands, the members of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity, so people can see who will be helping them out. Now, the focus of tonight's forum, of course, is criminal justice, the criminal justice system, and how the local laws in our region impact our young people. We will begin with a 60-second opening statement from each candidate, and we're going to start with Mayor Jack Young and work our way to Ms. Byrd. 60 seconds each.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Jack Young, the current mayor of the great city of Baltimore. Been in the elected office for the last 23 years. At the end of this term, be 24. My whole career has been spent on children and youth. My record speaks for itself. I created the Youth Fund so that organizations could, grassroots organizations could get the funds to have the after-school programs that our children enjoy. Supported Child First Authority with after-school programs. Created the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Services to deal with all of the issues that affects our young people and their families. Thank you. I think I'm going to keep it.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Baltimore family. My name is Ricky Vaughn, of course, one of the candidates, businessman here in Baltimore, owner and operator of franchises and some independent restaurants. As Mr. Mayor said, I let my record speak for itself. I don't show up and advocate for youth because it's election time. I show up regardless, whether it's January, February, March, or whether it's election season or whether it's another season. I'm proud to be here tonight and proud to share the stage with some very talented individuals as well. Some of the things that I've done in Baltimore, when you talk about the squeegee kids, I was out there representing the squeegee kids, hiring the squeegee kids when they were water boys and soda boys. So that's me. I'm in the community. I'm going to stay in the community regardless of what happened on April 28th. I was there in the past. I'm there now, and I'll be there afterwards. So I appreciate it. Check my website out, rickyvaughn.com. I appreciate your support, your prayers, anything you can do to help me. Move the city forward. Let's do it together.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for being here. Greatly appreciate you all taking out time to hear us out tonight and get involved in the process. I'm T.J. Smith, and I'm a candidate for mayor. And really, this is about you, the youth, and it's about your children, for the adults in the room. We're talking about criminal justice and crime tonight, among other things. And what we have to do is stop the school to prison pipeline and create the school to opportunity pipeline. That, if we are only talking about right now and the here and now and just the crime that's happening now, then we're not doing anything to stop this young group of people growing in to the adult repeat offenders that we talk about. That's what our job is. That's what we're all here collectively to do. I've had a career that I've worked in law enforcement, worked in government. I've seen a lot of things over the years, and we're all trying to do our part to stop what we're seeing in our city because we know it's so much better than that. So thank you all.
Thank you. I'm City Council President Brandon Scott. It's my honor to be here tonight to hear from the young people of Baltimore City. This election is about the future of Baltimore City, and that's why it's critical to be here talking with these young people. And quite frankly, young people, what you're experiencing today is why I got into office in the first place. I lived in a city just like you where the city has been investing in your failure instead of in your promise, has been trying to lock you up instead of giving you a good school to go in, has been trying to tell you what you want instead of asking you what you want and what you need to serve you. I am proud to be here tonight to talk about criminal justice and criminal justice reform, something that I've been a leader on in the city council. The first person to say that violence in Baltimore City is a public health issue and the police department alone will not solve it. We have to invest in the health of our young people and the education of our young people, the training of our young people, helping them build better communities and better selves. So that's what we have to do. This is what this election is about. Not just about who the next mayor will be, but what kind of mayor they will be. Thank you.
I'm Mary Miller, and I'm delighted to be here tonight. It's great to be back at Green Street Academy. And I thank you for doing this because it shows how much you care about our city and how important your voice is in running this city. I think about students like Greta Thunberg, who has captured all of our imaginations as an environmental activist talking about climate change. I think about the students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School who 2 years ago tomorrow lost 17 people to violence. We need to change that, and we need to involve you in the discussion to change that. Those students inspire me, and I want to inspire you as the mayor of this city, and to begin by saying I think we need to invest in our youth much more. We need to invest in your public safety, in your health, in your education, in workforce training, and giving you the opportunity to thrive in the city of Baltimore. I look forward to talking about these issues tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for allowing us to be a part and to hear from you and what your concerns are. I'm Sheila Dixon, and I'm running for mayor because I know what it takes to turn the city around. You know, let me tell you a secret that sometimes people don't realize. We actually have a great city with so many great entities in this city, and that is the people of this city. And so as mayor, we have to work together collectively to look at what's working and what's not. We have so many youth programs. We have so many nonprofit institutions. We have so many things in this city, but there's a disconnect between what's out here that's working and what's not. And so we actually have to start from the very beginning when the child is born and work with that baby and that family and track those individuals so that we can take a holistic approach. This is not something that we can do where we talk about locking up more people or creating more programs. We really need to begin to assess and take a holistic approach. And that's always been my motto, by always looking at collaboratively, how can we work together to solve the problems that we face? That's my minute. Thank you. That's what you said, power to the people.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Catalina Bird. I am the only Republican candidate for mayor that's on the stage this evening, while I'm not the only Republican. So I'll start by saying if any one of my friends here doesn't win their primary, you have options in November. Secondly, my daughter's here with me, and this is a youth-led forum. Sayla, stand up and say hi. Yes, that's my baby. So when I come into this and I tell you I care about youth, it's because I have one. She is the youngest. I have a 17-year-old. I've been in Baltimore. My work has spoken for itself for 20 years. Again, I know many of the people on this stage, most of them. We have a great respect for each other. I'm eager to hear what you have to ask about why I'm doing the things that I'm doing the way that I'm doing them. And I look forward to talking with you.
Before we thank all the candidates, first I would like to thank the principal, Tim Gordon of Green Street Academy. Can we please give a hand for him? Yes. For our first question tonight, we will start with Ms. Dixon and make our way around. A topic that has been on everyone's mind for quite some time now has been, what can our city do to support squeegee workers? What is your proposal to support squeegee workers without criminalizing their work?
Thank you for the question. And let me answer it by saying that we need to remove squeaky individuals from the corners, but I'm going to tell you what I'm doing right now, and I've been doing for the last year. When I drive down the street and I put down my window and I talk to the individuals and I ask them, what is it that I can do to help you, for you to have a better life? So right now, 3 guys are working for several of our contractors because they wanted a job. And I said, if you want a job, I'm going to help you to get a job. So we have 3 of them that are working with, one with L&J Recycling, one with M. Louise, and another company. So what we need to do is create community outreach workers to go out. If they're young people in school, they need to be in school. We need to help them with a part-time job, and we can get Ricky Vaughn through his businesses to help them with some jobs. If they are older than school age, and we need to get them into training programs and help them to get jobs so they can take care of themselves and their family. And that's what we need to do. And every day when I'm driving in and out the city, that's what I do. I'm waiting for a young man now where I was on the corner of St. Paul and North Avenue near the school system. I thought he was a 17-year-old, but he was a 19-year-old. I gave him my card. I said, call me so I can connect you with a job tomorrow.
Thank you.
I think it's going.
Whoever wants to take it next.
I said whoever wants to take it next. Thank you. Mayor Jack Young again. I created the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success to deal with not only the squeegee kids, but with families as a whole. And we are partnering most of the squeegee young men with mentors. We took 84 of them off the street. 39 of them we got back in school. 15 of them we had jobs, and the rest we have mentor program for them. I don't believe that any of them should be criminalized and locked up, but however, criminal behavior has to be addressed. You can't be out there squirting people in the face and fighting people and those kind of things. But as much as possible, we don't want to criminalize young people. My whole career has been supporting young people. A member of the Maryland Athletic Union, dealing with basketball, baseball, jump rope, the whole 9 yards. My whole career has been about young people and seniors alike. And the Youth Fund was created so that, thank you. Cut me off real quick.
So we're trying to figure out which order we're supposed to be going in. Don't pay us no mind.
Actually, Catalina, before you begin, this is what we're going to do. So the person that answers, the next person will be to the right, and we'll continue to the end and then start.
Okay, so I'll give it to Mary since Sheila opened.
Sure.
Okay, gotcha. First and foremost, squeegee kids are kids. The narrative around black children is one that I find to be grotesque. They need help, but they are not any different than any other child that's sitting in here today. My plan for them is to help them find out what they need, but I also want to discuss the fact that while everybody's criminalizing the squeegee kids, nobody's saying about the white meth heads and panhandlers that's standing in the intersection that are harassing those children for the money that they've earned. I have called BPD on those panhandlers multiple times, witnessing adults shake down children. We're not going to criminalize the youth and let adults that have other issues go scot-free. That's number one.
So to me, the squeegee kids are the perfect example of the lack of opportunity in the city of Baltimore for our youth. I think we could all agree that no child in Baltimore should have to wash windshields to survive in this city. And I think we need to take a much stronger approach to dealing with the individuals that are on the street, because every single one of them has a story. And I would suggest that we sit down with each of them and figure out what their needs are at home, whether they need to be back in school or whether they need a job. I think that's a very labor-intensive exercise, but I think that's what we need to do, and we need to find the alternative, because washing windshields is not your future, it's not a career, it is a symptom of the problem of the lack of opportunity in Baltimore. And I would take the step of working with each individual to see what they need and get them that opportunity. Thank you.
So let's be clear about something. No 10-year-old child is standing outside in the middle of the winter or the middle of the summer all day and just saying, yes, I want to wash windows. Let's be real about that. And let's also be real about people are afraid of them because they are young black men. That's the reality of the situation, right? We have to understand that. But when we're talking about dealing with squeegee workers, what we have to do first, I say this every time, you cannot go out and tell somebody you need to change your activity, change your behavior if you don't first get to know them. You have to first go and meet with each individual one of them, see what's going on with them and their family, assess them, because that's what's causing them to be out there in the first place, right? We have to see what their needs are, getting them in school, getting them a plan. Like I said at the last youth forum, we're going to start a year-round youth works program that we're going to start with the squeegee workers. That's what we have to do, investing in these young people and their families, because we have to understand what's going on at home is pushing them out there in the first place. Building a better community, investing in their neighborhoods, something that we have not done, is why they're doing that. That's how you cure this issue.
All right, this unfortunately has become an election year topic because it's not a new issue. The people on the corner have to come off of the corner, and we have to expect more out of our young people especially. If you belong in school, we have to get you in school. And if we talk about root causes and wraparound services, we had, if you remember last week, we had an incident with a squeegee person, and we had police officers out handing out pamphlets. It shouldn't have been police. It should have been social services. It should have been the Office of African American Male Engagement. It should have been the school system. It doesn't have to be the police, because we can't have the perception of criminalizing a problem that we know is a social issue. On my website, tjsmithforbaltimore.com, I put forth a comprehensive plan for a bridge to dignity for the squeegee people. So if you belong in school, we're going to get you in school. And if there's an issue as to why you aren't in school, then we need to address that. If your mom or dad has substance abuse issues, then there's a long-term problem that we need to address. But again, on my website, tjsmithforbaltimore.com, there's a comprehensive bridge to squeegee where we're going to get them to work cleaning up our city. Thanks.
So I'll piggyback off of TJ. Absolutely. This seems like it's only a priority when it's election time. Again, I said it in my opening statement. It wasn't squeegee kids 10, 15 years ago. It was water boys. They had the Pepsis, the canned sodas out there. We continue to put Band-Aids on issues in Baltimore City. We're always talking about put a car wash here, let them do this, and that's great. Part of my plan was reaching out to the Port Authority. We have hundreds and thousands of vehicles that come in there every single month. Why not get the squeegee kids down there employed all year round, not just seasonal, and that way they have income coming in, they're able to mentor with other business owners and different organizations. So that's one part. Number two, what have we been doing? My beautiful wife, baby mama, business partner, all this right here on the front row. We take the squeegee kids, we go out there, we partner with them. We not only teach them how to dress, how to speak, how to talk, but also we employ them. We partner them, whether it's with a physician at Johns Hopkins or with a bank, and we let them know that there's opportunities out there, and we're going to continue to do that.
Before we ask question number two, I noticed members of the audience are raising their hands while the candidates are answering the questions. There will be a period where members of the audience can ask their questions. So remember what you want to ask.
No, there was timekeeper.
What's that?
There was a timekeeper
Okay, all right.
that nobody's paying attention to, but me.
What's that?
That no one is paying attention to but me.
All right. Question number two. For this one, we're going to start with Ms. Miller. As we know, I mean, the focus of this is the criminal justice system and how it affects youth. part of our focus. So the juvenile justice reform has been a hot button topic in recent years. The juvenile justice system, as you know, has support for juveniles that the adult system does not. What is your position on charging youth as adults who have not been charged with violent offenses?
So I'm opposed to charging youth as adults who have not been charged with violent offenses. I think broadly we need to separate out violent crime in Baltimore from nonviolent crime in Baltimore, and we need to start working much earlier in the lives of our youth with diversionary programs that are going to keep them from getting trapped in this cycle of incarceration that prevents them from getting ahead in Baltimore. So I would be very interested in looking at some of the programs we think are working in Baltimore, things like Safe Streets, things like ROCA, that are going to reach youth earlier and stop them from engaging in crime. But in terms of the charging question that you're asking, I agree with the statement of what you're saying. Thank you.
The simple answer is no, they shouldn't be. We understand, you have to understand, this is something that the country and the world has grown on, that Baltimore has fallen behind. A 15, 16-year-old child's brain is different than a 23, 24, 25-year-old's brain, right? So in fact, it's also something that we need to consider even for certain young people who are charged with violent crimes, right? For example, right now I'm helping a young man who robbed me 10 years ago, and he's not the same person that he was when he was 16. I'm not the same person that I was when I was 25 years old. We both have changed since then, right? You have to understand how the brain works. What we have to do is go back to doing things that was cut out mainly at the state level, right? We had great diversion programs. We had programs like Operation Safe Kids. We had programs where young people got into trouble. We did peer-to-peer conflict resolution. That's how we have to do it. Allow the young people to resolve their own conflicts before we uplift them into the system, because once we get them into the system, we know what happens to them. They never get out. Thank you.
All right, I don't think Maryland charges under 18 with nonviolent offenses as adults, but what we need to have is more mediation for young people. Even when they're charged as crimes, when they can confront the person that they stole something from, got into an altercation with, you actually get better results. I used to work in a program like that, and you saw a lot of good results from that. I also want to put forth a teen court so that the peers of the individual can actually judge them, and it's a learning experience for everyone. It needs to be more robust, because it needs to be a program where they learn from one another, and we're able to hold young people accountable but not criminalize them for things that adults are criminalized for. And it goes back to opportunity. If the opportunity is only to do wrong and only to carry out that anger in this way, then that's what they're going to continue to do. And we can't continue to put our kids through the system, because we know the system is not really a correction system.
So, no, absolutely not. But Maryland doesn't charge youth as violent offenders for misdemeanors. So it's, so the question, no, to be straight up. But I'll piggyback on opportunity. One, I believe that we have to make sure that we're out there. We have to change the culture within Baltimore City when it comes to our young adults. We have to make sure we talk a lot about going out in the streets and all that, but it's more than that. It's going to the homes. It's actually making sure that, one thing I forgot to mention, not only do we hire squeegee kids, we hire their parents. In one case, we hired the grandmother. So it's making sure we get back into the homes and change the culture there and change the heart. The other part is we have to look at how do we go and how do we touch young adults and make sure that we're setting them up for success. That starts at 6th grade, where we don't have to worry about the conversation of whether we should be talking about criminalizing young adults and so on. If we go back to the root cause, which is education, and get back into our school system, grab their hand. Don't just give them a pamphlet and say, follow this, but go there and grab their hand. That's how you make a difference and how you change it.
Mayor Young again. That's why I created the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, to work with all the organizations that's charged with dealing with our youth. I say no, we don't need to criminalize our young people, but we also need to make sure that we hold those agencies responsible who are supposed to be dealing with our families. Social service, juvenile justice. I called juvenile justice a couple of times because a parent called me, told me that her son was going the wrong way. They said because he had not gotten into any trouble, they could not help. So they should be proactive instead of reactive in making sure that we give our young people the resources that they need so they won't be in the criminal justice system. I say no.
TJ was correct. Maryland does not charge youth as adults for nonviolent crimes, so obviously the answer is no, and it doesn't happen. But one of the things that does happen when we charge youth with violent crimes as adults is they get housed in the adult population, and that's a problem that current Senator Joe Carter, who's running for Congress right now to take the 7th congressional seat, has been advocating for over a decade. We re-traumatize our youth when we allow them to be housed in the adult population. So aside from the fact that they shouldn't be held accountable as though they have adult minds for the crimes that they hold, we have to still protect them while they're in the system because as far as I know, it was supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So we shouldn't be placing them in harm's way while they await their day in court.
Thank you. So the answer is no, we should not. But we also need to identify the red flag early on and provide those resources with those individual children and their families and provide the wraparound services. The way the system is set up now, a child can't get support and assistance unless they commit a crime in some cases, and it shouldn't be that way. We have to look at doing more preventive measures. That's why we created, and now it's renamed, Family, Youth, and Children, and we had an agency called, or an initiative called Family Strengthening, where we work with young people and their families to look at what their needs were and create a plan of action for them and their family. That's why I said we have what it takes, but there's a disconnect, and it's like, you know, let me create something new versus let's build on what we have based on success. And I just believe that working with young people all of my life, I know that those kind of wraparound services for themselves and families is what needed for us to break this cycle. Thank you.
Mr. Council President, you will start this next question. Youth civic engagement is highly important, but severely undermined in our city. So, my question, what are you going to do to include the voice of young people in the decision-making process?
Thank you for that question. Great question. And this is something that I pride myself on, right? We have to go to the young people, and again, as I said in my opening statement, ask you what you want. When we've been doing that my entire career, I live in our schools and I talk to our young people about our policies, what they think, what the policies should be, how they think things should change. We have what we have right now in Baltimore called the Baltimore City Youth Commission, right, where they represent all the council districts and then some citywide. We're going to take that and expand that. Every city agency head in my cabinet will have a youth shadow that they'll be tied to the hip with. So that person is hearing from them, the young people in Baltimore, how their policy are impacting their citizens' youth, how the policies that they're doing, what they're going to do for our young people. We're going to go to the young people and engage them in a way that they never had been before. Again, this is why I got into public office, because no elected officials not named Elijah E. Cummings ever came to my neighborhood. That's why I'm in this work, and I've been priding myself on working with our young people, taking their concerns back to City Hall each and every day.
We have to include young people in the decision-making process. If you're a stakeholder when it comes to decision-making that involves young people. Just like we're doing with school, or what we need to do with school with the curriculum. Everybody doesn't learn the same way. There are things that you need to learn, but there are other resources that can be in the school that everyone would take advantage of. And if we have more of the young people for target demographics involved, we would get better results because there's more buy-in. So bringing in the stakeholders for a specific issue, and the specific issue here being young people and young people engagement, you have to be part of the decision-making process. And the more buy-in you have, the more ownership you're going to have of the issue. So bringing the stakeholders in, bringing the youth in is critically important with any sort of programs that we're trying to launch from a city government. when it comes to youth. So that's exactly what I would do.
So, excellent question. So, I'm one of the candidates up here that's fortunate enough to have started with the Baltimore City Youth Council when I was 14 years old. I represented the East Baltimore, the Oliver community. One, I'll be straight up, it doesn't work. It's not working right now. We say we have all this, but why does it seem like we only come out here and include youth when it's election time? So one of the things I would do that has to change is that in every school, middle school, high school, we need a young adult represented in City Hall. I was the only candidate, the first candidate that came out and said we need a youth mayor of Baltimore City. You can't keep asking youth to get involved, and when they step up, you push them back. We not only need to have young adults to have a seat at the table, but damn it, they need to have a voice at the table. We need to stop playing politics when it comes to young adults' lives. We only come out and ask you for your feedback when we want your vote, or we want you to go out and encourage your friends to vote for us. We need to make sure that you're in the seat and have a voice at the table every single day of the week and at City Hall. We need to have young adults employed at City Hall. Why don't we have young adults right now employed at City Hall?
Mayor Young again, who created the Children and Family Success that one of the candidates said that was not new. It is new. I created it. And number one, we just created a children's cabinet. A children's cabinet. And we just had a big event about a week ago over at the conservatory, where youth are driving everything that we do because they need to be involved in decision making. My whole career has been dealing with youth, from Maryland AAU to the rec centers that I open up on Saturdays, extended hours. I mean, I've been dealing with youth my whole career, and some of the folk in this room who have youth programs can contest to that. I don't just come out during election time. This is something I've been doing my whole career, and I don't consider myself a politician. I'm a public servant. Thank you.
So when I opened, I told you I've been in politics for 20 years, right? I'm 39 years old. This question is funny to me because my career was built on making sure that we had a voice at the table, because what happens in election years is they come get us to do their canvassing and they door knocking and use us for our energy and our vitality, and then don't want to hear what we have to say. I had to fight to get to where I was in my career to be here now. In my background, if you look on my website, I worked for the Hip Hop Caucus. In Maryland, you can pre-register to vote at 16 years old, so that when you turn 18, your voter registration card comes in the mail automatically and you can vote. We went into downtown locker rooms and Foot Lockers and partnered with recording artists from Def Jam and registered teens to vote. I did that 10 years ago. I have always had a place for youth in my home because I know what it is to be somebody who has ideas and has ingenuity and just not be respected because of how old you're not. So in terms of this is what my body of work has been built on. I'm going on 40 years old. I don't want to do politics forever. I'm running for mayor this time so that I can teach y'all what it took me 20 years to learn, so I can retire and open a restaurant.
What are you going to do to include the voices of young people in your decision-making process? I have always included young people in the decision-making process in my public life and my private life, from my children to my kids that I used to tutor, to the kids that I worked with in camp. And as a public servant at City Hall, I created the Youth Commission. We want to expand the Youth Commission, not just let council people select who that youth is, but let community groups of youth determine who those youth commissioners are. I was the first one who created the PAGE program in City Hall, which hired young people part-time in high school so they could learn the legislative process. Then in the mayor's office, the internship program where young people were part of the process. The first budget in city government that was called the children's budget that young people from the commission created to determine what agencies needed to do in order to accommodate young people. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is look at our track record. Look at what we've done and what we can do. Thank you.
So I'll go last, and I'll say that I don't believe in making top-down decisions that don't include information from people that are going to be directly affected by that decision. And in the case of decisions that are going to affect youth in Baltimore, I would look for every opportunity to find the best forums, the best ways to engage you in helping us make those decisions. When I was working in the Obama administration, we were trying to figure out how to help families who were suffering with home mortgage foreclosure. And I wanted to talk to the families, not just the parents, but also their children, to find out how this horrible event was affecting them. And I think those conversations helped me think about the best way to solve that problem. And that's the sort of approach I would take in Baltimore. If we're making a decision that is going to affect youth, we need to have youth in the room to help us understand how to best do that. Thank you.
Before we ask the next question, we understand that Councilman Christopher Burnett is in the house. There he is. This is his district, so we'll just take a moment to recognize Councilman Burnett. Now on to our next question. For this question, we will begin with Mr. Smith. The question is, it is no secret that often people perceive that race and poverty are criminalized in Baltimore City. What would you do to end this practice, and what would you do to be inclusive of people who are homeless, the foster and opportunity youth in your agenda to improve the quality of life in Baltimore City?
Thank you. Another great question. Again, we've unfortunately isolated the pockets of Baltimore, which have become the pockets of poverty, and a lot of the problems, a lot of the socioeconomic problems that exist in those communities, where it's the failing schools, it's the homelessness, it's the poverty, it's the drugs, it's the violence, all in the same communities. I talk often about how we're going to have individual development plans for these specific communities where we're going to invest in them, and we're going to take investments upstream and not just downtown. That's part of the problem where a lot of our investments continue to be around the water and not uptown. We see the dilapidated homes in the same communities where all of these problems exist, but we have to reimagine it and refocus and re-envision these communities, because these are the communities that have really been just completely disinvested in for so many years. So I believe in overinvestment. When we say equity, equity is bringing everybody up at the same rate. We have to overinvest in these communities that have been historically underinvested in.
So great question, and I'll piggyback off of my good friend TJ. Absolutely, it starts in the community when you talk about racism, poverty, and all of that. Some of the things that what we've currently doing and what we've been doing is making sure that when we go into the communities, when you're talking about homelessness, well, let me go back. First of all, when we talk about crime, I've been one of the first candidates to say that. We have crime because of lack of resources that we put back into our education. When you talk about homelessness, when you talk about mental health, all of that is the result of why we have crime, or some of the result of why we have crime in Baltimore. What we've been doing is going out in the community, making sure that we have stronger communities, talking about economic development. We have, unfortunately, and it needs to be said, we got in some of our communities businesses that shouldn't even be in the community. They don't employ the community. While they don't invest in the community, but yet we still have them in our communities. You got business that you walk right by, trash and everything else, but yet we continue to go in there, we continue to support them. That's part of the issue that we have in Baltimore. When you talk about homeless issue, we should not be stepping over someone who's sleeping on a vent trying to get heat, period. So all of these issues are going to be continued until we actually get to the root cause of it and get back into the community.
Mayor Jack Young again. I created the Neighborhood Impact Fund and Affordable Housing Trust Fund to make sure the development is going to areas that haven't seen developments in decades. If you look over at West Baltimore, they call Baker's View. People say that development is not happening in neighborhoods. It is happening in neighborhoods. If you go over to Johnson Square, they're building new houses over in Johnson Square. If you go over to part of East Baltimore, where EBDI had the development over there, they thought the neighborhood would be gentrified. It's not gentrified. The neighborhood have blacks, whites, Latinos. It's a rainbow. So in order to drop down the crime, we have to make sure that people feel like they're part of the economics of the city of Baltimore. And since I've been in office, I've been pushing for affordable housing, more opportunities for our homeless population, and we're partnering with different organizations to try to find places for our homeless people to be. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, so the question on the screen is not the question that you read, but I'm going to answer the question that he read. And so we just kind of take the elephant out of the room. We're criminalizing poor black people. It's not just race. It's not any other race. It's us, black and brown people. So if you go to my website, birdforbaltimore.com, one of the things that I have is the West Baltimore Reinvestment Act. There is no more of East Baltimore left to gentrify because Hopkins and EBDI did that already. I'm trying to save my side of town for my children and for my children's children. The other thing is that we are a predominantly black city in population who has had 5 black mayors, and not a single one has presented you with a generational wealth plan for black people in Baltimore. One of the reasons that Marion Barry was so successful in D.C. is because he created a second middle class. He brought people up out of poverty. We have that plan inside of Team Bird. Baltimore.com. Let's talk about creating legacy wealth and generational wealth, and we don't have to keep asking and answering these same questions every 10 years.
Let me start by saying that sometimes people who live in the city have no clue about what goes on in the city. Because one of the things that we've done over the years is that we have created opportunities, particularly for the African American community, particularly getting involved in some of the development deals. But we got to kind of go back even sooner than that so that we can start working with families. Because part of the challenge that we face, while we have and have nots in certain communities that are thriving and some that aren't, because the opportunities have not been available to individuals. So we got to go back to educating folks to understand that it's not just about getting a job, but it's also about creating an opportunity. And so through my administration now and what I'm doing, working with African American companies, helping them to expand their businesses, hiring people that look like most of us here in this room, is how we create that wealth. Because in turn, those individuals will then begin to start businesses. I have worked with, over the last 8-9 years, and even before that, because my time is up, many, many companies to help them to create wealth in our community.
First of all, I would say that there's an absolute connection between poverty and crime in Baltimore when you look at the maps of the incidence of crime and the incidence of poverty. We have a shameful history of redlining and structural racism in this city, and we absolutely have to change that. Last week, I released a plan that I call inclusive growth in Baltimore, because we have to drive investment and opportunity to the parts of our city that have simply not seen that. It's the reason why I have been working to build a small business lending platform in Baltimore to get access to capital to minority and women-led companies. It's the reason why I serve on the board of the Neighborhood Impact Investment Fund to help get projects funded in underinvested communities. So as mayor, I feel a very strong obligation to lift the economic opportunity in this city, to raise income in this city, so that people have a chance to succeed here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start with the homeless and foster youth portion of the question first. No, we will not criminalize them. We will open up our resources and services to them. I said back in 2017 that every single Baltimore City public school should be a community school, and part of being a community school, when you think about homeless and foster youth, especially our homeless youth, is opening those schools up in the morning so they can get the stuff that they need, providing them meals, providing the ability to take baths, all the things that we have to do while we're doing the tough work of figuring out how we can get them into housing. But we have to talk about equity, because you cannot talk about the structural racism that has existed in Baltimore longer than anybody that's on this stage has been alive and think that one person is going to undo that. You cannot undo policies that are racist unless you do it through policy. That's why we passed the equity assessment program, so no matter who wins on this stage, they're going to have to do things differently, because the law and the council is going to hold them accountable to that. Means that they now have to invest in the neighborhoods that have been disinvested in Baltimore on purpose the way they should have been decades ago.
Amen. Well, to say something on that, many of us on the stage, whomever win, we will be bringing some of this talent inside of City Hall together. So, yeah, got you. So we appreciate that.
Let's start with this question with Mr. Vaughn. A recent special titled No Minor Crime was aired by Andre's colleague, Deborah Weiner. It detailed unsettling reality that crime in Baltimore City does not discriminate on the basis of age. Well, what is your public safety platform for Baltimore City? Specifically, what legislative priorities will you support to keep young children and teenagers safe from violent crime and positively impact their lives?
I love your passion. Love your passion. Great question. So one, I said it earlier, root cause, going back into education. It's great, and I'm not going to throw shame on anyone. It's great that we open up recreation centers on weekends. It's great that we're doing such and such for schools. But one, we got to make sure we go back and change the curriculum. We can open up a recreation center on weekends all day long, but if we don't have a curriculum in a recreation center, a program in a recreation center on the weekends to get kids, to get young adults involved in it, to make sure that we're teaching them whether it's STEM or anything else, we're going to continue the same path that we're on right now. When you talk about keeping young adults out of the crime and out of criminalizing young adults, we got to make sure we go back into schools. 6th grade, I continue to say that. That's the grade that we should be going back and setting foundations at in the 6th grade. Some of the things that we've done in my company, we put washing machines and dryers in some of the schools. Beachfield was one of the first schools because we know that some of our kids go to school every day with dirty clothes and not, don't have the resources at home. All of that ties into why young adults grow up and get into some of the trouble they get into because they lost hope. So that's what I'm going to do and support.
I go back to children and family success, where we're trying to connect our young people with resources, mentorship programs, after-school programs, the programs that I talked about earlier that I supported, Child First Authority, where they had after-school programs, and the Youth Fund, where grassroots organizations can get that money to have programs for our young people that our young people want to do. And let me say something about the Youth Fund right quick. The Youth Fund is ran by young people. I did that intentionally, and I took politics out of it so the young people can decide how, when, and where that money is spent. So I say more after-school programs, more engagement with the families, because if you don't rebuild a family, we're not going to stop the crime in the city of Baltimore. Thank you.
The public safety platform that I have is one that reprioritizes the way in which we use the fire department as first responders. We pour a lot of money into BPD, but the fire department comes. If you attended or watched the Urban League Forum that we had at Morgan, I intend to use social workers from the University of Maryland embedded with our first responders, because one of the things that happens is once you have been a victim of crime, are you more likely to then perpetuate it? And so as a domestic violence survivor, I can tell you that we learned this in the psychology of abuse, is that once you've been a victim, then you're more willing to victimize. Your fear is gone. You feel like you have to hit first to make sure you don't get hit again. So one of the things that I want to do with the youth and in the community, period, is to catch people when they get in the moment that the victimization has happened and bring the resources to them in that moment, not rely on them to have to go and seek the treatment that they might not know that they need, so that we can begin to change that cycle each and every time something happens in Baltimore.
You know, as mayor, one of our main responsibilities is to make sure that our citizens, especially our children and our elderly, are safe. That's number one. One of the things, and young people might not want to hear this, but we need to keep them busy. We need to keep them busy by keeping the school day longer. We need to keep the school open longer and bring those resources in the school to help them. We need to make sure that the 10,000 kids, I know y'all didn't like that one, but we need to keep the school day longer. We need to, the 10,000 kids that have applied for Youth Works this summer, I hope that the city has the money to hire them, but we need to take the program and do it all year. And in the same way that we go out and we try to raise money for our campaign, we need to put that same kind of energy in making sure that all 10,000 youth have a job, and then keep those jobs all year with certain criteria based on grades and support. You know, it's really about providing them the support that they need in order to stay active, because an active young person stays focused on what they're trying to do with a plan.
So I think you asked for some legislative ideas of what might keep our youth more safe. I would have to start at the federal level and say I'm a huge advocate for much stronger gun control legislation in the country. I would like to see even more from the state of Maryland, although I think we are better than most states. But we also need to see that from all the states that surround Maryland, which are much weaker and are allowing guns to come into our city. Secondly, I support the Kerwin Commission recommendations, and particularly the parts of that legislation that will help provide services to youth that need more mental health support and care in school. And finally, I like the legislation that the city signed last week on trauma-responsive care that's going to provide much more help to all the people in the city who touch youth and give them a much better way to approach the trauma that our youth have seen in their lives. So thank you for that, Mayor Young.
Thank you. I'll start there. I am proud to represent a body that unanimously passed the Trauma-Informed Care Act, right? That's how you lead. You lead now and not just after you win the election. But it's also about other legislative priorities, things that we can do, especially working with our state partners, right? Working with our state partners to get back state funding for Operation Safe Kids, working with our state partners to do the most important policy discussion in the history of Maryland, in my opinion, and that's fully funding our school system through Kerwin Commission. That's something that we know that we have to do that will ultimately keep young people safe. But it's also about digging a little deeper. When you think about those young people that are at risk, we have to identify them early, work with them and their families. Yes, we have to do year-round youth works, as I said earlier, but we have to get to young people and meet them where they are. Doing the things that we know, letting them resolve their conflicts, again, through peer mediation, something that we can do in our schools, making sure that we're investing in those programs each and every day, allow us to build the culture of investment around our young people that will ultimately keep them safe.
So when we talk about keeping people safe, we have to realize that there's some bad people out there that want to hurt our kids and don't really care if our kids are around when they want to hurt someone else. So we have to hold people who want to hurt other people accountable. That has to happen because right now they're going through this vicious cycle and the kids continuously see them back out on the street perpetrating the acts of violence. We saw it just earlier this week where kids had to navigate through a crime scene where a dead body laid on the ground, and it happened in the middle of the afternoon, and the bad guys didn't care where those bullets went. I agree with my friend Miss Mary where the country has to take gun control more seriously, and in Maryland we have to take gun control more seriously when it comes to the trigger pullers who are out there with no fear of repercussions whatsoever. At the same time, we have to invest in our young people more. I'm committing to responsibly raising our budget and our contribution, our city contribution to schools, so we can direct funds specifically to where we want them to go, and we have to fully fund Kerwin with the expected outcomes and the educational outcomes that we expect. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We're going to ask some questions from the audience. Before Amaya asked the last question, she mentioned my colleague Deborah's documentary, No Minor Crime. I would be remiss as her colleague if I didn't mention to you all that it will re-air this Saturday at 7 p.m., No Minor Crime by Deborah Weiner. It was one of the most insightful and impactful pieces of broadcast journalism I've seen in a long time, so I encourage you guys to watch that. Here's a question from the audience. It's about generational wealth. How do you plan to teach and encourage the increase of generational wealth? If there is an implication of, implementation of programs, will they be directed to parents and adults, just with black, but I believe the next line was, or children?
Can you say that question again? It's about generational wealth?
Basically, I'm going to paraphrase what that question was. It's about generational wealth. What kind of program would you implement in the city to teach generational wealth, and would it be directed to the parents or the adults or the children?
It would be directed to both. We had to really have financial literacy in our schools to teach our young people how to save and how to invest their money. Now, generational wealth in black families, I've never heard of it before because we don't tend to leave anything for our children. Now, that's the truth. We don't tend to do that. But let me tell you what I've done for my family and my grandchildren. I've set up accounts for each and every one of my grandchildren. My wife is sitting right there, and she can attest to that. Money come out my check every payday for all three. Now there's going to be 4 of my grandkids, because that's how you do generational wealth. And my house is going to be going down to my children and to their children's children. That's how you build generational wealth. And you teach them financial literacy so they can understand that you have to put something up for a rainy day. You don't just spend it all at one time. You put it up for a rainy day. And our generational wealth is what we need to be focusing on in our schools as well.
Okay, so first thing, a legislative priority is, there's 2 things we don't teach in school that we should do. When you graduate, you're old enough to vote and you're old enough to obtain credit, and you've been taught about neither. So financial literacy and civics need to be returned to school so that you can stop being a vulnerable population as youth. Also on my website is something called an intergenerational tax credit, where if you put your grandmother, your mother, and your child in the same house, we will give you the ground rent. We will redeem the ground rent for you so that you own the ground that your home is sitting on, but you have to agree to a life estate deed. And a life estate deed means that you can't sell it. And the purpose is that so that whether you understand the value of that asset or not, the moment that your child takes their first breath, they are born with one. That is how you build generational wealth. My mother lives on land that's been in my family for 220 years. My daughter that's sitting there already owns it, and she's 7. I've already done it because I've lived it. I'm sorry that you didn't have that lived experience. But my family did, and I'm going to pass it on to yours.
Two points have already been made about generational wealth, that we have to start at literacy, financial literacy, in schools. But I think that also as relates to property, the one thing that we have to keep in mind is that property means value. And so instead of leaving a property that your parents owned on Ruskin Avenue and you just did not want to deal with it, and then you leave it vacant, and then the city has to end up taking it over, we have to begin to teach early on that property means value and that we have to invest in property. But we also have to invest in creating entrepreneurships, curriculums in our school for our children as well as adults. I work with companies right now that are creating generational wealth. These companies have now turned it over to their sons and their grandkids, so it is happening here in the city, but we have to expand it and create more. And the one way to do it in the black community is we have to create financial opportunities. We have to have the funding to support creating those jobs, and that's one thing that's weak within our bank system in Maryland.
So home ownership is the single biggest intergenerational wealth transfer that we can provide in this country. And African Americans have a very low level of home ownership, and that's particularly true in Baltimore. So I think that if we can provide good homes that will hold their value and increase in value for African American families in Baltimore, we can really change the intergenerational wealth equation. The second thing I think we need to do in Baltimore is we need to raise income levels in the city significantly so people can save for a secure retirement and to leave assets to their children. And the third thing that I'll say that I think youth should be interested in is a program in San Francisco that I would love to bring to Baltimore, which is that every kindergartner, the day they start school, gets a college savings account opened for them, and gives them the ability to save. And it sends such a strong signal that we believe in you and your future. Thank you.
You can't talk about generational wealth without talking about generational opportunity, right? I am standing here because my grandfather moved here and was able to get a good paying job at General Motors, which created the pathway for me to be here today. what has happened for so many of my counterparts is that they didn't have that, right? They didn't have the ability for their family to do that. And what the city has to do is invest in those neighborhoods and those people, right? We have to do financial literacy, teaching our young people, but teaching them about financial literacy, but not providing an education that leads them to a career and a job that they can actually work to make that money. To own a house means that we're teaching them something they'll never be able to obtain in the first place. So what we have to do is realign the way our education system is, making sure that the jobs and the education that they're getting in the schools today leads to good paying jobs, making investments like we just passed a bill on Monday that the mayor will sign, creating a low income tax credit for Baltimore City workers, so people that pick up your trash every day, because they deserve the opportunity to own homes in Baltimore as well. And what we also will do is be very intentional about investing in home ownership for middle and low income workers across the city so they can build that generational wealth.
The lack of financial literacy in schools is a form of oppression. The fact that that exists still in 2020 in Baltimore is criminal, because that is cheating young people out of understanding finances. The young people aren't even learning how to balance checkbooks anymore, don't understand what credit reports mean, which really is holding them back from the opportunities that the future holds. As my colleagues up here said, home ownership, that real estate is the biggest way to earn generational wealth and pass it along. Black folks got a late start, and we're still in the infancy stages of having the freedoms to be able to continuously build upon it, but we have to be specific and intentional. And I think Catalina brought it up, where you saw cities in the country like DC, Atlanta, and Detroit, where it was specific and intentional, that budget was carved out, that black people in those cities had an opportunity to build businesses and buy homes. We have to do that in Baltimore, and it will be done.
So it's two parts to the question. First of all, going back to making sure when we talk about financial literacy, we have to go back and make sure we're teaching, again, it's been said already, but teaching young adults how to write checks, fill out a checkbook. But also part of it is making sure that we teach them savings accounts, whether it's bonds or whatever the case may be. It's sad that we don't teach financial management until you're in college and you're already in debt. But yet we have the opportunity where we can connect with young adults right now early on in their education career. The other side is we talk about home ownership and all that. We need to be teaching our young adults how to write a will. We need to be teaching our young adults about life insurance. We need to be teaching the parents about life insurance. Every day in our restaurants when we're meeting and interviewing and we're getting to know young adults, we're going over that. We're teaching them that it's more to life than just working at a McDonald's or working at a KFC as a cashier. So we're asking them, what are you interested in? That's where you start that connection at. What are you interested in? How do we help you get to achieve those goals? How do we help you when it comes to budgeting and finances and so on? And you only got 1 minute.
Is it me again?
Thank you. How do we really know that you all care? Not only that, but how do we know that you're not up here just to be seen? How can we trust you? And because we all know that statistics don't lie.
Well, I already got it now. Yeah. So, I've been on radio and TV for 15 years. I didn't need to run for mayor to be seen. That's number one. I don't particularly care to iron. I like to wear jeans and yoga pants, so I even put on cute clothes for y'all today. But you know that I care because my body of work speaks for itself. I've been here for 20 years. I've sat on task force. I've sat on commissions. I've supported candidates that are actual, authentic people like Christopher Burnett in their communities. I haven't gone, don't you cough about my man. I haven't gone anywhere. When I say I love Baltimore, look me up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I am equally as energetic on social media as I am in person, if not more, depending on the subject matter. But I'm here because I care and because I've seen what happens when we sit back and we don't do what is best for the city, and we do what's best politically, and we, people that look like us, have been with us paying for it. I supported Joshua Harris in 2016. I don't care what party you're in. I just want us to get it right for the kids.
I was born and raised in Baltimore. I love this city because of the people in this city. I can give you example after example that would probably take about 2 hours, but I'm going to give you one brief one. This young man came 2007, I don't even remember, but he came to my headquarters and he wanted a soda. And I'm like this. I said, I will give you a soda, but you got to work for that soda. And not only did he work for that soda, but when he went into high school, I supported him as a page at City Hall. And when I became mayor, I made a requirement that he had to go to college. And I helped him to go to college. Now he's still working in city government in an administrative position. Antonio Hayes, who was a young man, worked for me as city council president, then as mayor, helped me to reduce the crime by coming up with a plan. I can name person after person. Right now, I have 4 young people that I'm mentoring in college. One is in Buffalo, New York. One is at Lincoln. 2 is at Morgan. I have high school students that I'm working with right now, mentoring them, supporting them in their efforts so that they can be successful with their plans in their lives.
So how can you trust me? I am a citizen of Baltimore. I have lived here for 34 years. I'm not a career politician. I'm someone who's deeply concerned about the trajectory of our city and the future of our city, and I'm personally committed to doing the very best job that I can to get Baltimore back on the right track. As far as my integrity or my honesty, I went through 2 Senate confirmations to work for President Obama. I went through the highest security clearance for the government. I have no issues. There's nothing that you'll find about me that would concern you in terms of my honesty or my integrity. But I will say that I have a tremendous amount of heart for the city and have no higher ambition than to serve you and to do the best job that I can for this city that we all love. Thank you.
Thank you. I care because I am Baltimore. I'm one of you. I'm born and raised here. I struggled here. I toiled here. But you can also look at my effort and my work. You know, young people, I'm the one you see in your school. I'm the one that's meeting you in wherever you want to meet. I'm the one that you see walking your neighborhoods at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm the one that has coached you in basketball or in football and created youth program and the youth program, mentoring young men and young women who are now in college or in the fire department or whatever they do in their life. This is what I've done for my entire life. But most importantly, I'm risking it all for Baltimore City. This is not a safe bet for me. I could be running for another office, which is much likely ascension, but this is about Baltimore. Baltimore deserves a mayor who's willing to risk it all, risk their future, not for themselves, because this isn't about me. I want to work for Baltimore, especially our young people, to create a pathway that was not there for me, to have a mayor that wasn't there for me, to have people that understand what it is to be a young person in Baltimore and stand up for that each and every day.
Thank you, Brandon. That was a great segue because I absolutely risked it all for Baltimore. I left my job because this was important to me and decided my investment was going to be not having a job while I went through this process because it meant that much to me. I lost my brother to these streets. I lost my cousin to these streets, and I'm tired of it. I'm not a politician. Many of you probably have seen my face before, so I definitely ain't up here for y'all to see my face more. I'm up here because we need to think differently and stop doing things the same old way and every 4 years having these conversations. I'm able to make decisions and not worry about what my next political endeavor is going to be. It's about the here and it's about the right now because we are in a bad situation in this city. My mother's been teaching here for 36 years, and my son's mother actually teaches right around the corner here in this school. And that's what I've seen my entire life growing up in Northwest Baltimore, and I'm tired of what we're seeing in this city. We deserve better. We will get better.
So I'm super excited about this question. I don't even know where to start. I've been saying it for years. I've been saying it since we've started this campaign. How do you know someone's invested in Baltimore City? Look at what they say they're going to do and look at what they actually have done. Look at their record, whether they're in politics or whether they're in business. That's how you know someone's true heart. If you show up just for cameras and just for the spotlight, this is not for you. We own 120 restaurants. I'm excited about our business. I'm excited about being married to this lovely woman, but I have invested in Baltimore. We put last year alone $80,000 into Baltimore City Public Schools with washers and dryers, with basketballs, with baseballs, with soccer balls. Those are things, and that's how you show someone's heart or you know someone's heart. Not only that, we invested our own money into this campaign. We didn't take any donors, any special interests, and none of that. Why? Because we don't want to owe anyone any damn thing. We want to owe you everything that you should be promises and everything and the commitments that we should owe to the citizens of Baltimore. That's how you know someone's heart. I'm sorry, I saw the fist. I didn't see it. My fault.
Thank you. I'm going to have to be very quick. My whole career has been about our youth. My record speaks for itself. The Youth Fund, the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, my volunteering, my own time at schools. You know, I didn't just start doing this. I've been doing this for years as a member of the Maryland AAU. I'm at every basketball game. I'm at every football game. I sponsored so many uniforms for basketball teams as well as football teams. I helped sponsor the East versus West at Mayoral football game. My action speaks louder than words. Check my record. You can see I've been consistent. I don't even like photo ops because they do no good. Who gets it? Who gets it? No. That's it?
That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, that's the last one. Now we're getting ready for closing statements. One thing that is very clear is that you all care a lot about your city, right? You would agree? Oh, okay, yeah. There are more than 24 candidates running for mayor. In your 1 minute and 30-second closing statement, tell the youth of Baltimore and likely voters what sets you apart and what makes you the best candidate to lead our city. Ms. Bird, you may start.
Thank you. So like I said, that's a move I would pull. So like I said, I'm the only Republican on the stage tonight. For my minute and 30 seconds, I'd like to encourage you to go to my website, Bird for Baltimore, BYRD, the number 4, Baltimore.com. Look at my plan. I love Baltimore. My friends on the stage that I know love Baltimore as well. If one of your favorite Democrats doesn't make it out, then you have the option in November and you never have to change your party. We're going to be writing the next chapter of Baltimore's history. We made decisions in 1999 and who we elected to mayor that we're still paying for now. And so what I don't want us to do is to pass that same legacy on to our children. We have options, we have opportunity. All we have to do is think differently, think critically, and believe in the people that we know. I know it's your slogan. It was Apple's first, though. I'm holding my iPhone. Shut up. So he stole it from Steve Jobs. Now he act like I stole it from him. But, you know, this is an opportunity to write the next chapter, to right the wrongs of the last 20 years. A lot of us have had the hashtag 2020 vision, but my grandmother used to say hindsight was 2020. So when you see me using that hashtag, it's because I'm looking back at all the decisions of the last 20 years and the policymakers that have represented us before and how it's impacted us and our children now. I'm not looking forward without looking back because I know that we have to right those wrongs or we'll only make the same mistakes again.
You know, I started off because I was born and raised in Baltimore, went to public schools here in Baltimore, went to college in Baltimore. I love the people of this city because I know we have the capacity to be successful. And so it's going to take a leader and a visionary person who can get in there day one, reduce crime as I've done in the past, clean up this city, bring our youth together to work on issues that impact them, fund the school system so that we can create the kind of opportunities to eliminate the poverty that we face in this city, continue to develop. We just don't develop downtown, but we've developed and we use pilots in communities. Frankfurt Estate, Upton community. I could name one after another, but we need to develop more and create job opportunities. I've been all over the world, and two places that I always visit when I travel are prisons and schools. And I could see the conditions of some schools that I've seen in Africa, places that I've gone in Africa, and then I come back home and say, I know we can do better just based on what they face. But I didn't move into the city to run for office. I did not, change careers. I love the people of the city, and I know what it takes to get in there day one and get things straight. I ran this city when we had no money. We were in a recession. So all the new changes and different programs where we changed from the youth and family to now a new group, I was the first mayor that was able to raise the money and hire 7,000 youth one summer. I hope we can do that this summer. You need to challenge those who are in public office now to make sure that happens. That's my minute and 30 seconds. Thank you.
Here tonight, I fear for you because I worry about how you've grown up in this city and what you've seen. The violent crime that you've witnessed is such an outlier for what a major American city should be experiencing. The vacant housing and underinvested areas of our city are such a blight on our landscape when we look around the city. And the lack of opportunity that we're providing to citizens in Baltimore is just a tragedy in my mind. We can do so much better for our citizens with a new kind of leadership in Baltimore. I would ask you to look at what I'm saying about inclusive growth in Baltimore and how we can drive a much stronger economic agenda in this city to lift people out of poverty and give them that ladder to get to a better place in their life. I've also said some things about education and the kinds of investments that we need to be making in our youth so that you are prepared for college, so that you're prepared for a good job, so that we're giving you the services to address the trauma that you've experienced living in this city. I think we can do so much better for our youth in Baltimore, and we can do so much better for our city. So I look forward to doing that for you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to the wonderful young people for having us here tonight. This is the most important election in Baltimore in a generation. It's not just about who the next mayor will be, but what kind of mayor they will be and what they will stand for. Will there be someone that's tied to the status quo in the way the Baltimore city government has operated for the last 50 years? Or will they be the leader of a new generation that understands that Baltimore's government structure today is broken and needs to change and be returned to the people? This is what this election is about. I grew up here in Baltimore. I grew up here poor in Baltimore. I understand what it is to live in a neighborhood that goes through violence, and I've dedicated my life to trying to change that each and every day. But now we're going to take that further. We're going to understand that violent crime in Baltimore is a public health disease and attack it from a lens of public health. We're going to fully invest in our schools. We're going to fully invest in our young people, creating opportunities in neighborhoods where they have not been any the entire time I've been alive. And what we're also going to do is we're going to rebuild our government structure from top to bottom. We are not just going to plug in new people. Great people in a broken structure are doomed to fail, and the government structure we have today is broken. We're going to build a better structure with better people so that we're serving Baltimore and putting the city of Baltimore on a new way forward where Baltimore is benefiting everyone and not just some. Thank you so much.
So we have to think differently about how we're doing this. This has gone on for far too long. I commend all 24, I believe, candidates that are running for this office at great personal sacrifice. And one of the first things I'll do is have all of them in the office with me, and we're going to share ideas because no one has every single idea. But it's time to turn the page. Were we embarrassed yet again today reading through what the former mayor did and seeing that nonsense and continuously seeing the people that get the privilege of your vote take advantage of your vote by lining their own pockets? We need integrity. We need ethics. We need accountability. It's unfortunate that we've been stained by corruption in this city over and over again, whether it be by the police department or by elected officials. It's time to turn the page. It's time to have people that can be bold and make decisions and not worry about what donor they're going to tick off, not worry about what political office they might not be able to ascend to next. We have to make decisions for the here and right now. It is a critical time in Baltimore, and the reason we all are up here is because we care. We have a different route of getting there, and that different route of getting there is me, TJ Smith for Baltimore.com. Thank you.
So in closing, I would say thank you to the young adults. Thank you for organizing, putting this together. Much appreciated, much love. We can do better than that. We cheer louder at basketball games, but when you got young adults in a building that is concerned about their city, I have much respect to you guys, and I appreciate you. What has to happen moving forward is you have to elect a mayor that thinks differently about approaches in Baltimore. Young adults should be working at City Hall. I've said that before, and I will continue to say it. They need to be employed by Baltimore City, representing Baltimore City, a seat in Baltimore City, and a voice in Baltimore City. We have so many grassroots organizations in Baltimore City, but guess what? Not one damn one of those grassroots are on cabinets or committees in City Hall. That is how we take Baltimore City to the next level, making sure that everyone has a seat at the table, everyone has a voice at the table, and making sure that we continue to build families, go and change the culture of Baltimore. It starts at home. Why I'm running for mayor of Baltimore City, I'm passionate about it. I believe in order to get to it, you must go through it. Born and raised here in Baltimore City, I dropped out of high school and went and got my MBA. I was homeless for 2 years and now a homeowner. I was homeless as a teen and now a homeowner. I was that minimum wage worker at McDonald's and now a business owner. We have to have someone who's bold enough, but also someone who's not worried about whatever's going to come to them because they're going to get the job done. If we're short on police, get in a police car and go on patrol. If we're short on teachers, get in the schools and pick up a textbook and educate our kids. When you talk about we got so much trash in the street, get out there with a broom and dustpan and help pick up the damn trash. That's how you move Baltimore forward, and that's the thinking that we should have. Mike.
Mic check. Well, I am the mayor of the great city of Baltimore, born and raised in Baltimore, have my wife from Baltimore, my 2 children from Baltimore. I've already proven all the things that they're talking about, I'm doing. The new way of doing things, I created the Youth Fund. I created the Children and Mayor's Office, Children and Family Success. I've opened up rec centers. I've done just about everything. Just go to MayorJackYoung.com and you'll see that I don't just talk it, I walk it.
Thank you to all of our candidates. Can we give them a round of applause? We'd also like to thank the audience here at Green Street Academy. Yeah! You guys did great. Mr. Vaughn and Mr. Young, they gave shout-outs to their wives, so I have to give a shout-out to my wife as well, also in the audience. Thank you. Oh, shoot. I'd applause for her, too. Right now, we are going to welcome up here CLEA alumnus Tyler Brody, who will administer the My Mayor Must Youth Pledge. Ladies and gentlemen.
All right. I want to say first, in 2018, just like my friends here, colleagues on the left-hand side, CLEA issued a resolution for year-long youth works jobs that was passed in 2018. So we can give a hand clap for that. All year, youth work jobs. I want to personally thank all of you, the candidates, and to the board and to our executive director, Ryan Turner. And now I want to give the pledge. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I will be open to growth and new ideas from the community and to the youth. Okay, my mayor must be responsible to his or her actions. My mayor must have accountability to those actions. My mayor must think extravagant to understand the needs of the people and respond accordingly to the people. All right, and the last one that I want everyone to take part in, my mayor must be a leader. must be a leader. All right. I want to acknowledge Green Street Academy for your welcome and hospitality. I want to hold accountable all the candidates who are here tonight, because I'm looking up to you to take your place and to be your successor one day later along in the line to be Baltimore's next mayor by the generations to come. All right. I want to acknowledge the young lady who designed the logo, which was on the screen. And to thanks to all of you who are here tonight, you can, again, create a poll that is on the back of the pews there on the front, on the two-hand sides, to decide who will become your next mayor. And again, thank all of you who are here tonight. You go in peace.
Thank you, man. Great job.
And ladies and gentlemen, the next installment and the final installment of our series, of our Mom Mayor Must series, is happening on March 10th at Friends School. March 10th at Friends School is the next and final installment of the Mom Mayor Must Youth Forum series. Please complete your straw polls on your